Hi, I'm V. Mitchell, and today I'm going to try and convince you to read my book. Straight to the point, Betrayal, my only published book at the moment, is a book on zombies. There are these teenagers that are trying to help the main character, Clover Primrose, to find her parents whom weren't there when the apocalypse started. Only problem is if somebody has betrayed her, hence the title, Betrayal. A short book. It's only 32 pages. No. Moving on to the pros and cons. Starting off with the pros. 1, it's a short book. There's only 32,000 words, which may seem like a lot to a non-writer or a non-reader perhaps, but it is in fact not a lot, as that kind of, depending on like how you wrote it, it's like up to 100 pages, which I can't remember if Betrayal is like 140 pages or like 104 pages, but it's definitely under 200 pages, so it's easy to like get through. You can finish it within like a day. Number 2 is that drama is played out almost every single chapter. Every chapter you will read, there is something new and there is something happening. Number 3, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe the chapters are short. Shortest there is chapter 3, and it's like probably like 400 words if I had to guess. But in general, the chapters are short, only ranging from like 1,000 words to 2,000 words, if not less. Number 4, there's great detail. Even though this is kind of somewhat a lie, it's great detail. The words, they hold meaning, definitely. You can tell if you just read it. But that kind of goes well with the cons. Hold on a second. Number 4, I wrote it when I was 12. I am currently 15 years old. If you bought my book, you would be supporting a teenage author. Now this kind of plays into the cons, as we are now getting into. Number 1 of the cons is that it is poorly written. Even though there is great detail, it's also really confusing, and it definitely looks like a 10-year-old wrote it. And technically that's true, because I was 12 when I wrote it. I only finished writing it when I was 13 and published it when I was 13 in March. Maybe it was March or September. I don't remember. But it is definitely poorly written, and the punctuation isn't all that great. And even though I remember proofreading it constantly, not constantly, but like I proofread it multiple times, there is still mistakes, and it's crazy how many mistakes there are, but there's a bunch of mistakes and it's poorly written. However, I don't think that should stop you from reading the book. If you ever read on Wattpad, I don't think this is an issue for you. Number 2, sad ending. If you're only into the happy endings and want like a holly jolly little oh my gosh yay kind of ending, this book is probably not the one for you. This book contains a sad ending, and maybe you're into sad endings, which can be either a pro or a con for you depending on what type of books you read. And number 3, death is a huge factor. I can only say little on this con because it will spoil the book, and I don't want that to happen because I want you to read it. But death is a huge factor, and in my personal opinion, there's this one specific chapter that I love. Like, it is so devastating, but I love it so much just because for me, how I remember writing it is that it was just so detailed. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's like just horribly written as like everything else. But for me, just the book in general really is just a look into what my 12-year-old mind was looking into and how I was looking into things. And one chapter, I think it's somewhere in the 20s, where Clover is at her grandparents' house and this and that happens. Just that whole journey of being at her grandparents' house was really just my favorite part of the whole book. And I definitely recommend reading it just for that chapter, just for those chapters, because those are just, they're my favorite. Or the ones where they're going to the safe house, those are really good chapters. I love those too. Going back to the cons, I do think that number 5, I think we're on the pros, I think the characters are very likable. There's multiple characters. It might be hard to memorize, which that can be a con for some people, but the characters are actually really likable in my opinion, even though some are like horrible and I actually don't like them, but I like them. Like, does that make sense? I like them, but I don't like them at the same time. I just personally think that all of the characters are likable, whether they're unlikable or not, which is a huge contradiction, but it's what I think. Maybe I'm biased because I wrote the book, but come on. Going back to the prawns, I mean, what? Going back to the pros, another pro is that the whole book is written in big print, so if you don't like those tiny fonts that you sometimes struggle with and they're just annoying, Betrayal is probably the book for you because it has big print, and big print is just like easier to read. Like, come on, let's be so for real. Anyway, that's it for me trying to convince you to read my book. I try to keep it as short as possible, and I hope that you do get it. I hope you do read it. I'm not looking for money. I only want you to read my stories because creativity is a really huge thing to me. I love creating things, whether that's through paintings, through poetry, through books. I just love creativity, and it's more about like what you can get out of the story more than like what I can get out of the profit that I make from you buying the book. Buy it. It's on Amazon for $13.99, but it's free on Kindle Unlimited, so